skills.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted the player to be able to sort of insert their character into the game. So, you could come back. There's a question that somebody saw this morning which was relating to, how do you think your rookie season's going to go? And one of the answers was, people will talk about this in 50 years' time. It's a bit of arrogance.
I know exactly how I'm playing this campaign.
Yeah. I think that's
full confidence.
Yeah.
Looking at it, I mean, over time, everyone is expecting improved visuals. What steps have you taken to make it even more? I mean, because it already looked great before.
Yeah. So this year, it's a lot of small things that came together to make essentially the perfect image. So you can see just as we got on screen there's a very light distance fogging in the environment. That's not something that most people realise is around you at all time. That environmental effect. We've got new tech for the sky, for the clouds. We've also got the additional kick-up of the dust off the racing line.
Wow.
We've also got, as you'll see mainly in the replay cameras, the heat haze from the cars, heat haze on the track surface, that mirage effect that you see in a camera and a racetrack. It's all those things. It's lots of little things that come together to make a really stable and believable image.
Will we have seasons?
Yeah, so you can play up to 10 career seasons. And what's unique this year that we've never done before is there's a rule change that could come into effect throughout the career. So at the end of season 1, it may be that there's going to be a reset to the engine rules. If I don't protect some of my components, the next season I start with a weaker car. Or it could be that one of the other teams fails to protect their components. So you get a totally different order.
Wow.
So the teams that are at the top in one season might not be there at the start of the next season. And that's something really cool to look forward to seeing.
And what if they fail to protect their tires against, like, I don't know, a sharp knife or something on, an off night? I don't have any options so I guess my question is, the character of my driver, I'm going to be answering press questions, I'm going to be navigating the campaign. How many other options do I encounter as my player character outside the car?
Yeah, so as well as sort of the R&D aspect as well, developing the car, you also have your rivalry. So obviously you have a rival, which is your teammate. Everybody in Formula 1 wants to beat their teammate.
Yes.
But you can also elect to select another rival. So it may be, again, if you're playing as somebody who's been particularly arrogant, you're like, well, I'm going to beat one of the top drivers in the sport. And if you do so, your reputation with your team and other teams will go up significantly. But if you lose to a driver who's considered not so strong, obviously your reputation is going to take a dive.
So all these factors, it's not just your choices in conversation, but literally everyone you choose to give a little side eye to is going to change the course of your story.
Very much so. I mean, that's what we've always wanted to achieve, which is a player's story that the player basically creates themselves, and not just through obvious decisions, but through their character.
Awesome. So Lee, I want to get straight into it. I mean, this game is about cars. I know you probably can't go into the details, but how many cars and then are classic cars going to make a comeback?
So the classic cars that we had in the last game, they're back again this year.
Nice.
But we are going to add another selection of cars, which we'll be talking about after E3.
Awesome.
What's that process like? Do you have any insight into that? I know it's a big company and a lot of people do a lot of different things, but how do you build this relationship, and then how do you add on to this and innovate the F1 relationship? Because you have more things than the real F1 does.
Yeah. So I mean, for the actual, the official season itself, obviously we got all of the teams on board. We get to amazing access. We've got great relationship with all the guys at Formula 1, so we get incredible technical insight into how a Formula 1 car works. But when it comes to the classics, we've got great relationships with a lot of companies that still own these cars, because a lot of them are in private collections. Or they're actually run by, racing teams who run them in classic events. And we get great access to those. And again, we 3D scan those cars as well.
Are you going into, like, Jay Leno's garage?
Oh, do you know, that would be a dream come true.
Right?
Yeah.
So how much involvement do the actual drivers have with the game? Do they get to choose, hey, I want to be a little bit more edgy this season or something like that?
Do you know what? No, none of the drivers have ever asked us to actually tweak their abilities in the game.
Wow.
But they do have.
There you go.
They do have input into how they think it feels. We'll get feedback from the drivers. You probably have seen recently we had Charles Leclerc playing the game at Monaco. So that was a really early play for 2018.
Right. Amazing.
I love that the drivers, and I've heard this a couple times with some of the racing games. How faithful are your representations of the tracks that they actually drive on? Because I've heard some drivers will sit and they'll play the game a bit just to get used to the angles, the curves.
Yeah, we've had many years where we've launched before certain tracks have even been on the calendar, and the drivers have actually learned the tracks through the game.
Wow.
And this
Spoilers! You better be paying attention.
And this year we've got 2 new tracks as well. So Hockenheim's making a comeback, the German Grand Prix, but a totally new track to the series. We've got Paul Ricard, and that's really cool as well.
That's a lot of pressure. You know? The drivers learn the track first, they can go out on it. Your game told me.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I like to think that they're out on, like, Twitch combing through the F1 2018 players. Like, oh man, Summit gave me all the tips for my next race.
Oh my goodness.
And that brings me up to another question about shareability of content and the community that exists around F1. Can you tell me a little bit about what the game community is like and where they live?
Oh, I mean, obviously Formula One's a very European-based sport these days. Yeah, that's where the fans are, but it's growing at a massive rate. You look at where the races are moving to now. There's a race in Texas, obviously.
I was going to say Texas.
Mexico. Yeah, so you know, it's growing at a huge rate. In terms of the fans, I mean, they are the most passionate and knowledgeable fans you'll ever get. So, I mean, if I make a cock up here now, you know, I will know about that for weeks to come. They'll be reminding me of it over and over again. But we've also, you know, we've got a great bunch of community that we get involved on a regular basis. And at the moment, we're actually running a beta. And it's a fairly limited size beta, so
Can our viewers get into your beta?
So unfortunately not. As I say, it's very limited in that we've got a selection that we can get a really, really focused information and feedback from.
Well, if fans at home want to share your content, if they want to make you aware of how much they love your game, are you guys out there on Twitch watching?
Oh yeah, we watch everything. You know, our social team as well are on top of absolutely everything. I mean, I've been tested all morning to make sure that this is well publicised.
Excellent.
Yes.
What did they tell you? Did we miss anything? Do we get all the notes?